News here at 6 o'clock, an age-old dream becoming a reality. A local inventor has discovered a way, hear this, to use water to run your car.
It's a major breakthrough that will no doubt make motorists happy. And as Ralph Robinson explains, the Pentagon is also showing lots of interest in this project.
Quirky realm of vehicle design, the 1930s brought us the Dynasphere, a colossal monowheel electric car that danced on the edge of innovation and accepted.
Back in the late 90s, General Motors put out an electric car called the EV1. It was sleek, fast, totally electric, and people who drove them absolutely loved them. Celebrities like Tom Hanks and Mel Gibson got in on it. And then GM...
Like that. Yet I can hook my machine that I said does not run off the current, it does not run off the wattage, it runs off the voltage. It takes no power to produce voltage. Dead batteries have voltage. Dead batteries will run that machine. This will change the world.
Of a very controversial subject, and that is cold fusion. Some believe this topic is dead. However, my guest, Dr. Eugene Malov, will not let it die. He believes passionately in the viability of cold fusion. In the simplest terms, cold fusion uses water to produce energy at room temperature. Some things we're going to look at today are why cold fusion has not been embraced by the scientific community, the politics involved, and what the implications would be if cold fusion were proven scientifically.
Of a simple invention that can increase the mileage per gallon to 100 miles a gallon is suppressed.
And so the big three automakers really controlled major industry development in America, and they set the tone. And if they wanted a car that only got 20 miles to a gallon because it behooved them, that's what we were going to get, even though, we could easily get 100 miles to a gallon with a tweak of this technology.
Eyeful, no hands. Who knows, commuters? This could be your 5:15 of tomorrow.
And when little Henry takes off, it's best described as a three-dimensional motorcycle.
Boom. To see the light bulbs come on, to understand that we are helping to validate a science that's been lost is powerful.
That is awesome!
Albert Einstein said that Tesla was the smartest man on the planet, and we actually reproduced one of his experiments today.
You can bring it down, guys.
What else was in those missing files and all those trunks he had? How many inventions and ideas and concepts might have been in there that we really need to look at and figure out?
Possible. Cold fusion does not produce in its ideal form, which is essentially what would be in commercial units that we know are going to be produced soon. These units will have no radiation, okay? And that can be tested for, assured for, and it is basically the cleanest form of energy imaginable, and it is infinite for all practical purposes.
What if I told you that right now, thousands of inventions are legally forbidden from being seen, locked away, silenced, classified, not by corporations, not by secret societies, but by the United States government? In 1951, a little-known law quietly gave federal agencies the power to place secrecy orders on patent applications, called the U.S. Invention Secrecy Act. And since then, thousands have vanished from public view. In this episode, we're uncovering what the Invention Secrecy Act really does. 21 controversial inventions linked to secrecy or suppression. Claims of free energy and water-powered cars. Mysterious deaths. And the line between fact and conspiracy. If you enjoyed this episode, then why not hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe? We appreciate it. Let's begin. Stefan Marinov was a Bulgarian physicist, researcher, writer, and lecturer who promoted anti-relativistic theoretical viewpoints, and later in his life defended the ideas of perpetual motion. and free energy. In 1997, he self-published experimental results that confirmed classical electromagnetism and disproved that a machine he had constructed could be a source of perpetual motion. He was the leader of the European free energy movement, known for field work in electromagnetism, anti-gravity, perpetual motion claims, invention, Siberian Kolyu electromagnetic motor, a self-rotating machine. Stefan Marinov's Siberian Kolyu is a controversial, claimed free energy device consisting of a copper ring rotor with internal alnicomagnets that supposedly produces more energy than it consumes, or perpetual motion. By interacting with the magnetic field, it acts as a motor/generator. Often tested in the 1990s, he claimed violation of conservation of energy. Marinov publicly demonstrated his motor in Austria and Germany, claiming it produced continuous rotation without external input. He also published in fringe physics journals and self-distributed materials, arguing mainstream physics was flawed. Marinov claimed Western and Soviet institutions were suppressing revolutionary physics research. In 1992, Marinov wrote a letter to German Federal Chancellor Helmut Kohl in support of a German company, Becokraft, that was doing research into free energy technologies and had recently been the target of lawsuits. In the letter, Marinov threatened to set himself on fire at the steps of the German parliament if Kohl was not willing to intervene in favor of Marinov's associates. Marinov died on July 15, 1997. Graz, Austria. Official cause: fell from a library window, ruled suicide. Conspiracy theory supporters claim he was pushed due to his anti-gravity work. Authorities ruled it suicide. No forensic evidence publicly confirms homicide. Eugene Malov was a cold fusion physicist and expert. He was a MIT trained engineer, published criticisms of mainstream dismissal of cold fusion, founded Infinite Energy magazine, gave lectures internationally. He claimed he had a working prototype of a free energy device. Cold fusion was widely covered in 1989 after Pons and Fleischmann's announcement.
By surprise, in the afternoon, there was an announcement by Drs. Martin Fleischmann and Stanley Pons at the University of Utah, stating that they had performed what appeared to be some type of nuclear process in a small vessel, a jar, a test tube, as it were, of heavy water with palladium. More heat was coming out, they said, than could possibly be accounted for by the electricity going in and any known chemical reactions. This became a very controversial subject called cold fusion.
Malov appeared in documentaries, advocating excess heat experiments. His death was on May 14, 2004, a day before he was about to make a public announcement about his findings. Official cause: blunt force trauma. He was beaten to death. Case outcome: 2 men convicted. Robbery motive established. Conspiracy theory: some believe he was silenced for promoting cold fusion. Court records show no connection to research activity. Stanley Stan Meyer. Invention. Water fuel cell. Claim: split water into hydrogen using less energy than electrolysis. Meyer said his system used a pulsed electrical frequency to destabilize water molecules. He demonstrated a dune buggy that appeared to run on water.
Tap water, pour it into the gas tank, and run his dune buggy. This is so absolutely phenomenal, because just imagine you get up in the morning, want to drive somewhere, all you got to do is just run your tap water, pour it in the car, and off you go. I mean, this revolutionizes everything.
News here at 6 o'clock, an age-old dream becoming a reality. A local inventor has discovered a way, hear this, to use water to run your car.
It's a major breakthrough that will no doubt make motorists happy. And as Ralph Robinson explains, the Pentagon is also showing lots of interest in this project.
Water has always been considered a precious commodity, but Stan Meyer's invention may make it even more valuable. He has developed what's called a water fuel cell. It has taken the place of his old gas tank. The water fuel cell breaks down water molecules into oxygen and hydrogen. The hydrogen is used to run his dune buggy.
I don't care if you use rainwater, well water, city water, ocean water. If you don't have any fresh water, go ahead and use snow. If you don't have any snow available to you, they use salt water because there's no adverse effect to the fuel cell.
Meyer started working on this project 4 years ago. He's not a scientist. He isn't even a chemist. In fact, he never graduated from college. Myers was determined, he says, to design something to protect this country from oil embargoes.
And we have calculated that if we take the dune buggy from Los Angeles to New York, we would roughly use 22 gallons of water.
The Pentagon flew a lieutenant colonel in last week to look at Meyer's invention. There's talk of possibly using it in the Star Wars defense program and to run army tanks. Myers is currently perfecting a water fuel cell for cars. It will cost about $1,500. He says it won't need any maintenance, and you won't have to replace it. It'll be at least 2 years before the fuel system goes into mass production. The day it happens will be one the fuel industry hates, but it'll put a smile on the face of those who've had to say at one time or another, fill her up.
Investors funded him. In 1996, an Ohio court ruled his claims fraudulent, stating the device used conventional electrolysis and did not perform as claimed. In March 20, 1998, he died after dining with potential investors. Official cause: brain aneurysm. Conspiracy theory: poisoned after shouting, "They poisoned me." No autopsy evidence confirmed foul play. No secrecy order has been documented.
We recently took a scientific delegation to witness Stan's work, to really evaluate it, and came back saying, this is one of the most important inventions of the century.
Mark McCandlish was an accomplished American aerospace illustrator and conceptual artist who became a key figure in UAP, UFO, circles, for detailing the flux liner, an alleged alien reproduction vehicle, ARV. He claimed this advanced, reverse-engineered anti-gravity craft was part of a secret military program, a narrative famously explored in the documentary 0 Point. In the 1980s and 90s, McCandlish claimed to have seen classified anti-gravity craft based on alien technology.
Well, what happened? He says, well, this thing, was flat on the bottom, sloping sides, a little ledge around there, and then a dome on the top with these little glass things on top. Looked like there was a camera under each one. And I said, really? He said, yeah. No, no landing gear. And it was hovering. And I said, let me borrow your pen. So I took out a Kodak lens cleaning tissue package that I had in my camera bag. It was the only thing I could think of to draw on. I did a quick sketch of this alien reproduction vehicle as described by my friend Brad Sorensen back in 1988. And I said, is that what you saw? He says, oh, you've seen one. And I said, no, but I wasn't sure until this moment that the story was absolutely true. And so that was when I knew there was a...
These discs were hovering off the floor without any visible means of support. They were referred to as alien reproduction vehicles, also nicknamed the flux liner because they used high voltage electricity. This is a diagram that I made based on a sketch that Brad Sorensen did for me in rough form, and subsequently cleaned that drawing up and made it much more accurate.
In his telling, the ARV story isn't a UFO story in the usual sense. It's a reverse engineering story, one where second-hand testimony becomes a set of engineering constraints, and those constraints are used to infer architecture, power in, power out, field effects, controls, safety margins, failure modes. He made public appearance in the 2001 Disclosure Project press conference. National Press Club gave diagrams and testimony. His death was on April 13, 2021. Official cause: suicide, gunshot wound, reported by authorities. Conspiracy: supporters believe he was silenced due to UFO disclosures. No public evidence contradicts suicide ruling.
You know, I gave you the basic verbal description of what I saw. He says, but somehow or other, you've taken everything, all the information I gave you, and you have graphically interpreted into an image that is so close, so accurate. He said, this is really dangerous.
Being shut down when they're trying to implement these things. Or killed. Yeah. I mean, there's many times I lay awake at night with my 9mm under my pillow, loaded, and I wonder why they haven't killed me.
The Avrocar, Avro Canada. VZ9. Lead designers: Jack Frost. Avro Canada Engineering Team. Year 1958 to 1961. The Avro Canada VZ9 Avrocar is a VTOL aircraft developed by Avro Canada as part of a secret U.S. military project carried out in the early years of the Cold War. The Avrocar intended to exploit the Coanda effect to provide lift and thrust from a single turborotor, blowing exhaust out of the rim of the disc-shaped aircraft. In the air, it would have resembled a flying saucer, originally designed as a fighter-like aircraft, capable of very high speeds and altitudes. The project was repeatedly scaled back over time, and the U.S. Air Force eventually abandoned it. Demonstrations and test flights were conducted in Canada and the U.S. The program canceled in 1961 due to instability. Conspiracy: some claim it was more successful than reported. Declassified documents show it struggled with control issues.
Huh. So they say.
Dr. John Coster-Mullen was an American industrial photographer, truck driver, and nuclear archaeologist who played an important role and conducted a decade of research in creating a public record of the design of the first atomic bombs. He is known for his critically acclaimed self-published book, Atom Bombs: The Top Secret, Inside Story of Little Boy and Fat Man. He used to work for McDonnell Douglas, one of the largest military contractors in the world. Mullen died June 29, 2004, due to arsenic poisoning. The suspect? His girlfriend. Mullen mostly lived alone, but was letting his girlfriend's daughter stay with him at the time that he became ill. But when police went to arrest her at her apartment, she was also found dead. There were no other suspects, no investigation, and no trial was ever taken place. Rory Johnson. In the late 1970s, Rory Johnson created a cold fusion, laser-activated, magnetic motor that produced 525 horsepower that would power a large bus 160,000 kilometers on about 5 kilograms of deuterium and gallium. Greyhound bus lines had entered into a deal with him to receive such a motor for their fleet of buses, to install this revolutionary motor in several buses, in order to demonstrate fuel savings, maintenance reduction, and Hence, the possibility of greater profits for Greyhound. Greyhound tried to contact him after a year of silence, only to find out that he had died unexpectedly. This was odd since he had been in his early 50s and in robust health. It's very interesting that the U.S. Department of Energy had placed a restraining order on Johnson's company, Magnetron Incorporated, prohibiting it from producing the magnetron engine. Mark R. Tamayan is an inventor known for securing U.S. patents related to unconventional electrical generation, specifically the electrodynamic field generator. His patent describes a device designed to produce high-voltage electrodynamic fields, or corona discharges, often discussed in contexts relating to, but distinct from, conventional star drive or propulsion technology, which uses zero-point energy, pretty similar to the ARV. The machine uses input rotary torque to generate a very high-energy external electrodynamic field, or a continuous DC corona/arc discharge. In 2009, he developed a working prototype. He soon died of unexpected cardiac event, and his research remains missing. Dmitry Petronov, plasma battery technology. Dmitry Petronov was a Russian inventor of a plasma battery that powered his entire two-bedroom house in Moscow for almost 14 months before the Russian government seized his device. After Dmitry disappeared on February 10, 2010, after visiting a local bakery, he was never seen again. Zachary Green Warfield was a co-founder and a member of the board of directors for Omnis Incorporated, a McLean, VA-based strategic consulting firm for the intelligence, defense, and national security communities. Zachary Warfield had visited with Dmitry Petronov to exchange information, and yet was another inventor who made his own plasma battery. In 2010, Zachary turned up dead in a strange boating accident on the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. His real occupation as an undercover government operative grew suspect. The Howard Johnson magnetron motor is a purported free energy device designed to operate solely on the magnetic flux of permanent magnets, such as neodymium. It uses specifically arranged angled magnets, stators, to create a gate effect, creating continuous, self-sustaining motion and potential electricity generation without fuel. It used hydrogen, magnets, light rays, and fusion to create electricity. His motor worked, and Johnson has proved it over and over again, but still was denied a patent.
The dilemma facing Johnson is not really his dilemma, but rather that of other scientists who have observed his prototypes. The devices obviously do work, but the textbooks say they shouldn't. Johnson is saying to the scientific community that this is a phenomenon that seems to contradict some of our traditional beliefs. For all our sakes, let's not dismiss it outright, but take the time to understand the complex forces at work here.
Supporters claim it can generate up to 20 kilowatts of continuous, clean energy without fuel or high heat, though it has not been widely adopted by mainstream science. While his machines were controversial and faced challenges in gaining mainstream acceptance, he held multiple patents for his magnetic devices and finally received a patent for his motor in 1979. Public records indicate Howard Johnson died of Natural Causes, on January 2, 2008, in Blacksburg, Virginia. Proponents of free energy argue that Johnson's technology was suppressed by corporate interests, leading to the disappearance or storage of his prototypes. The core of this conspiracy theory is that his motor could provide free energy, which would destroy the conventional energy industry.
Science and physicists are especially determined to protect the law of conservation of energy. Thus, the physicists become game wardens who tell us what laws we can't violate. In this case, they don't even know what the game is, but they are so scared.
The Ogle carburetor. An inventor by the name of Thomas Ogle claims what may seem like the most plausible version of the 100 miles per gallon carburetor. In 1971, while working on a mower, he accidentally punctured the fuel tank, which led him to create a vaporized fuel system that allowed the machine to run on gasoline vapors, achieving an impressive 96 hours of operation. He then successfully adapted the system to a car, a 1972 Thunderbird. Supposedly, Ogle's system converts liquid gasoline into a vapor, which then mixes with air, allowing combustion engines to run on vapor alone. Ogle claimed an even 100 miles per gallon when running his carburetor, and he even filed a patent, which was granted, and conducted a demonstration in 1977 with a 1970 Ford Galaxy. The story goes that the auto companies wanted in, but they demanded a controlling interest in the patent, to which Ogle would not agree.
I've always wanted to be rich, and I suspect I will be when this system gets into distribution. But I'm not going to have my system bought up and put on the shelf.
Supposedly, Ogle would eventually sell the marketing rights to his invention to Advanced Fuel Systems Incorporated in 1978. Intended to propel Ogle's invention into the mainstream, a couple of years later, things will take a dark turn when the Securities Exchange Commission filed a complaint against Advanced Fuel Systems, Inc. for violating federal securities laws. The company would announce that the system was not ready for mass market. Ogle supposedly traded his royalties away in a pool game, and by 1981, at the age of 26, he was found dead of a supposed drug and alcohol overdose. The circumstances surrounding his death, coupled with ongoing legal disputes over his invention's financial backing, left lingering questions about whether Ogle's innovative solution to fuel efficiency faced deliberate suppression.
One has to wonder who was behind this SEC clampdown on Tom Ogle.
What Tom Ogle quickly discovered is that while he is this wild-eyed American dreamer and should be considered a hero, is that he was actually throwing rocks at the oil industry. They wanted, in fact, to control the oil market, control the auto market, and their carefully planned progression of how it would go from gasoline into diesel and electric, just moving the herd in this way. And anybody that stands in their way is going to get stomped on.
In the power that they have developed on the entire economy has put them into a position where the patent office has actually established a guideline, and it actually says that any invention that threatens to destabilize an established industry, they would immediately seize it, saying, wait, we can't allow this to be patented and commercialized because it would undercut the petroleum industry. And it turns out 85% of all of the weapon systems of our entire Defense Department run on petroleum.
R.E.D. Gus is an independent inventor who developed and patented technology aimed at extracting usable energy from the quantum vacuum or zero-point energy field His work focused on creating devices for converting this ambient background energy into electrical, direct current. In 2007, he was about to get on a flight to meet investors about his research. He was then found dead in his car at the airport. James Allen was a filmmaker, director, and writer, known for the 2013 documentary 0 Point, the story of Mark McCandlish, and the Fluxliner. The film investigates claims regarding secret anti-gravity propulsion technology, specifically focusing on a supposed advanced aircraft, known as the Fluxliner, and the testimony of illustrator Mark McCandlish.
And so, I'm kind of mystified as why a lot more people haven't picked up on this and really and sort of hammered on Lockheed or Grumman or whoever to say, are you guys really doing this? I actually called a spokesman at Lockheed and asked her straight up. I'm like, so what's going on with your electrogravistics program? And she's like, well, we're not at liberty to discuss those programs. And I'm like, really, why not? And she's like, well, it might threaten our competitive advantage. And I really wish I'd gotten that on film or tape. Because my next documentary, Tom, are you listening? I want to do a investigative documentary on specifically on anti-gravity in the aerospace.
Cool. That's going to be interesting to watch.
Well, before his film was ever even released, James Allen died in 2013 to an aggressive form of cancer. He never got to see his film. Autopsy results revealed an aggressive tumor that usually occurs with patients with cancer for a few years, not weeks, which was a bit odd. And his blood contained 12 heavy metals and radioisotopes at toxic levels. Beryllium, manganese, thorium, and uranium were found in his blood.
Well, that's not suspicious at all.
His next film, which would have exposed anti-gravity technology, being pursued by military contractors, would now never happen.
Well, that sucks.
Nikola Tesla, seized papers, 1943. When Tesla died in a New York hotel, the Office of Alien Property seized his trunks of documents. Dr. John G. Trump, uncle of former President Donald Trump, reviewed them. The official report stated there was no workable death ray or free energy weapon. Nikola Tesla's death ray, which he termed Teleforce, in the 1930s, was a proposed defensive particle beam weapon designed to shoot down airplanes from 250 miles away. It aimed to harness metal ions to create a non-dispersive, high-energy beam, which Tesla envisioned as a peace ray to stop wars, rather than a traditional weapon.
The concept of ion beam is that it's essentially a high-energy laser that is designed to rapidly heat up the target that it's aimed at. We're talking about aircraft, drones, missiles, anything that could launch an attack on a city could be literally destroyed in the sky by ion beam. This sounds very much like Tesla's death ray.
This is exactly the kind of technology that Tesla was talking about in the 1920s and 30s, of using these beam weapons to shoot down missiles and projectiles.
The War Department sided with Einstein and Oppenheimer's atomic bomb, not with Tesla. But now what we're seeing is that Israel is developing this.
However, some files were classified for years. Tesla had worked on wireless energy transmission, Wardenclyffe Tower, high-voltage transformers, resonant energy systems. While fascinating, no confirmed suppressed infinite energy system was found. But the government seizure fueled generations of suspicion. The FBI later released many files. No confirmed hidden free energy breakthrough has been proven, but the mystery persists. Nikola Tesla died from coronary thrombosis, a heart attack, on January 7, 1943. At the age of 86, he passed away alone in room 3327 of the New Yorker Hotel. Back in the late 90s, General Motors put out an electric car. The GM EV1 was the first purpose-built, mass-produced, electric vehicle from a major U.S. automaker, produced from 1996 to 1999 to meet California emission standards, featuring a 0 to 60 miles per hour time of 8 seconds and a range of up to 142 miles. It was a well-regarded, efficient two-seater.
Result is the GM EV1, an electric car milestone that some of you in the Southwest can actually drive home right now. But do you really want to? Because anyone wishing to drive an electric car will have to make a few adjustments, the very least of which will be getting used to GM EV1's peculiar styling. Unlike conventional cars, which need not trade all of their styling for aerodynamics, this soap bar with a drag coefficient of only 0.19 clearly places function over form, especially at the rear, where the roofline mimics styles that even the French won't buy anymore. But like the rear fender skirts, is absolutely necessary for squeezing maximum mileage out of the EV1's batteries. Those batteries are a set of 26 fully recyclable lead-acid units with a range of 70 to 90 miles. The whole cluster weighs 1,175 pounds and must be replaced after 450 full discharges. Up front is the EV1's heart, an electronic control module that governs a three-phase alternating current motor producing 137 horsepower, which feeds those electric ponies through a two-stage gearbox and differential to the front wheels, which are lightweight squeeze-cast alloy units wearing 14-inch low rolling resistance Michelin Proxima tires, and are stopped by electrically operated anti-lock equipped front disc and rear drum brakes. Inside the EV1 is a spacious two-seat cabin with a dash that's clearly GM, but with an oddly positioned center gauge cluster that displays speed and battery life. It carries manual seats only. They're lighter than electric ones, but does offer familiar features like power windows, a CD player, and air conditioning. Storage space inside the cabin consists of little more than a small space behind the seat and coat hooks, but the 9.7 cubic foot trunk equals that of many current compacts and holds a small convenience recharger that will juice up your EV1 in about 15 hours. Larger home systems will do the job in a much more practical 3 hours. All require little more than plugging an inductive recharging paddle into a port in the EV1's nose, and it's safe to use in any weather. But the driving's the thing, and we did finally get to drive the EV1, but only after punching in the correct ignition code. There are no keys required, and discovered that this 1,800-pound car is quick as well as quiet. You almost bolt from 0 to 60 in 8.9 seconds. Handling was not quite as impressive, but still competent. Its double wishbone front and beam axle rear suspension design delivered a soft economy car feel despite being built of lightweight aluminum and composites. But the important point is the EV1 drives like a real car, not a glorified golf cart. Of course, the EV1 wasn't designed for performance. It was designed to be clean. But if you want one, here's the biggest adjustment of all. You have to lease it from one of 26 select Saturn dealers in Southern California or Arizona. GM will not sell you one. The lease price is $33,995 before local and federal environmental credits. Depending on location, monthly payments will vary between $480 and $640. That includes all service, including battery replacement. But chargers must be leased separately for $50 a month. It's all a far cry from the usual car ownership routine, one that, while we're not quite ready for, apparently has thousands of others already standing in line.
Despite positive reception, GM discontinued it due to high costs, limited demand, and a desire to avoid further regulation, eventually destroying most of the 1,117 units produced. Or maybe it's because it didn't rely on gas or oil. There is a whole documentary to this, called Who Killed the Electric Car, that dives deeper into this. Basically how big oil companies were not too happy about a car that need no oil changes, no gas, barely any maintenance. If you want to check it out. Some say the EV1 was not a failure, just worked too well. Royal Raymond Rife, May 16, 1888 to August 5, 1971, was an American inventor and early exponent of high magnification time, lapse cinemicrography. He claimed his machine can kill cancer cells, basically blasting tumors with specific radio waves, without hurting the healthy cells. Rife is known for his microscopes, which he claimed could observe live microorganisms, with a magnification considered impossible for his time, and for an oscillating beam ray invention, which he thought could treat various ailments by devitalizing disease organisms, using radio waves. Although he came to collaborate with scientists, doctors, and inventors of the epoch, and his findings were published in newspapers and scientific journals, like the Smithsonian Institution Annual Report of 1944. They were later rejected by the American Medical Association, AMA, the American Cancer Society, ACS, and mainstream science, due to lack of proof, and research on his device has pretty much ceased. Rife supporters continue to claim that impulses of electromagnetic frequencies can disable cancerous cells and other microorganisms responsible for diseases. Most of these claims have no scientific research to back them up, and Rife's machines are not approved for treatment by any health regulator. Multiple promoters have been convicted of health fraud and sent to prison. Rife's lab was conveniently destroyed by a fire. One theory claims that pharmaceutical companies felt threatened by his technology because it could have wiped out and cured cancer without the need for expensive treatments and surgery.
With Zeiss Optical. He did have a degree as a doctor, Dr. Royal Rife. He was a doctor of pathology, a pathologist. And so his primary concern in his studies was finding the causative agent of disease, looking for the pathogens that were related to the problems that people were experiencing in life. And Rife was supported by a man named William Timken, because Rife did a lot of work for a lot of people. He was very innovative. He was a genius. He had experience in so many different modalities of science where most people would need a team of scientists around them or experts to develop some idea. Rife had enough knowledge in his head by the 1920s that he could virtually call on any of these things in his head that he'd study and build it himself. He was an incredible individual. And one of the early things that he worked on, it started around the 1920s, was the universal microscope. Actually, the universal didn't show up till 1935, but he began working on a virus microscope. He wanted something with enough magnifications that he could actually see things that no human had seen under the microscopes of those days. Even today, if you and I go out to try to purchase a microscope from a store, you're usually talking magnifications maybe 200, 300, 400, 500 times. If you get into some very expensive professional microscopes, you might get up to 10,000 magnifications. Maybe if you pushed it, somebody may have something at 15,000. But by 1935, Rife had developed the universal microscope with magnifications of an incredible 50,000 times. And so Rife was seeing things back there in the 1930s that most people hadn't seen.
Thomas Henry Moray, 1892 to 1974, was an American inventor who claimed to have developed a radiant energy device in the 1920s capable of producing electricity from an unknown cosmic source, often linked to the theoretical concept of zero-point energy. His device, featuring specialized tubes, allegedly tapped into this vacuum energy, though his claims were never independently verified by mainstream science. During the 1920s, Moray worked in the emerging field of radio. After hundreds of experiments designed to improve radio reception, Moray claimed to have discovered a source of energy transmission, apparently available everywhere. Using advanced ideas in solid-state detectors, he developed a power source, which he claimed to produce 50,000 watts. By the early 1930s, dozens of people had reportedly witnessed demonstrations of this technology. In 1944, Moray was paid $25 a day by the Rural Electrification Administration to perfect his system of drawing electrical energy out of the atmosphere. He claimed his invention produced electricity with no exterior input of energy. The primary component of the device was a non-heated vacuum tube. At the time, most vacuum tubes had heaters built inside. The Patent Office refused to grant his patent. Initially, because they claimed that any vacuum tube without a heater would not work. He was never granted a patent for his power supply device. He did have other inventions, and was able to obtain a patent for one of those, the electrotherapeutic device. Moray's lab was vandalized and robbed. It said he and his family survived multiple assassination attempts. In 1940, he publicly demonstrated the success of his machine. The next day, he was attacked. His assistant turned on him and destroyed his lab and equipment. Official report states his partner went crazy. Others believe someone got to him. Thomas Moray died broke and took his technology to the grave. Edwin Gray. He created an electric magnetic motor which ran continuously on its own power. Edwin Gray's 1970s radiant motor was a pulsed capacitor discharge electric engine claimed to produce over 278 times more energy than it consumed. It utilized a unique circuit to harness collapsing field energy to recharge its own batteries, aiming for a 500-mile range and running cold. The input was 26.8 watts. The output, over 7,000 watts. Edwin Gray's machine was tested and verified by multiple scientists. Local authorities illegally raided his lab and confiscated everything. Not long after, Edwin Gray was found dead in his home. All his records, inventions, and materials all vanished without a trace. Johnny Dotto was an inventor based in Dayton, Ohio, who secured U.S. patents in the early 1970s, including a 1974 patent for a method of constructing a thermionic couple. His patented work focused on industrial and technical applications, such as specialized metal loop construction. The Italian researcher created a large ring to go around the human body. Its purpose was to alter DNA to reverse aging. According to the legend, Dotto reversed people's age over 20 years. Made from heavy copper, the Dotto ring manipulated a magnetic field around the human body using gravity and frequencies inspired by the Hunza Valley in Pakistan. where the people there rarely get sick and live well over 100 years. Most researchers claim their longevity is due to exercise and healthy diet. But Dotto believed something else was the reason. He believed the extreme heat from the valley and the cold from the glaciers created a magnetic anomaly in the area, which protects the DNA and slows the aging process. The Sloan Kettering Hospital successfully tested the Dotto ring. They claimed it worked. The Dotto ring can also levitate. The FDA soon got involved. They shut down Dotto's research. Not long after that, Johnny was hit by a car. Then, after being hit, he was run over multiple times. The age-reversing, levitating Dotto ring was never seen again. Floyd Sweet Sparky was an American engineer who developed the Vacuum Triode Amplifier, VTA, or Space Quantum Modulator, a purported free energy device. The VTA allegedly used specialized, conditioned barium ferrite magnets and coils to produce over 1 kilowatt of 120V/60 Hz electricity by tapping into the zero-point energy of the vacuum. Continuous on-demand power, anti-gravity, 224,000 watts from a box the size of a small book. That's enough to power your house, recharge your electric car, light up a stadium, no matter what you connect. The zero-point field will give you all the power you need.
So we have a 120 volt fan. As you can see, it's turning at good power. It is providing quite a breeze, and it's real. And here, just coming into view, you see 5 100-watt lamps, ordinary garden variety household lamps, brilliantly lit. So there's 500 watts of very real power here, again coming right out of the vacuum. This is real usable power. It's stable. It is not transient. It is not noise. And it is not any other kind of spurious effect. This is a real effect. It's all coming from that little tiny box sitting behind the 500 watts of power. Behind the lamps, that little box is putting out all of that power, well over 500 watts, and yet it is receiving less than 1/3 of a milliwatt of input power.
He later filed a patent. Then one day at the grocery store, a well-dressed man approached him with a photograph of him and his wife inside their home, taken from the outside, meaning someone has been watching them.
He walked me all the way to my building, telling me what would happen to me if I didn't stop my research. How they took that picture through my window, I'll never know.
Things got worse after he reported the incident to the FBI. He soon began to receive random phone calls, being harassed. The phone calls then stopped when someone broke into Floyd's lab and stole his notes. Then one night, 2 men stopped by to talk to Floyd and his wife. The men then left. Then about an hour later, Floyd collapsed. His wife quickly called the ambulance. But when she tried to ride inside the ambulance with him, they refused and will not allow her. Then about 20 minutes later, she received a phone call informing her that Floyd had passed away. The cause was a heart attack. Less than 24 hours later, a few black vans appeared at his home. The FBI confiscated all of Floyd's equipment and research. It was never seen or heard of again.
Gee, There seems to be a lot of disappearing going on.
Right now, in the United States, thousands of inventions legally cannot be discussed. Not because they failed, not because they were unsafe, but because the government said no. Since 1951, the Invention Secrecy Act has allowed federal agencies to block certain patents from ever reaching the public. And while most are military, some inventors and their supporters believe revolutionary technologies have been buried. Free energy, water-powered vehicles, anti-gravity propulsion. Imagine how different and better our world and life's would and could be if these inventions weren't kept from us. Due to greed, power, and control. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The U.S. Patent Office has long rejected perpetual motion machines. Why? Because they violate the laws of thermodynamics. Extraordinary energy claims require extraordinary proof. So far, no independently verified device has demonstrated sustained free energy beyond established physics. That doesn't mean innovation is impossible. It means proof is everything. The idea of suppressed free energy is powerful because energy controls economies. Fossil fuel industries are massive. Breakthrough energy tech would disrupt trillions of dollars. In controversial energy circles, deaths of inventors are often labeled suspicious. However, most documented deaths list natural causes or unrelated criminal incidents. No verified evidence shows systematic assassination of inventors. Under the Invention Secrecy Act, it's important to separate tragedy from proof. The Invention Secrecy Act is real. Thousands of inventions are hidden from public view at any given time. But the evidence suggests they are overwhelmingly military and defense-related, not suppressed miracle energy machines. Still, the secrecy fuels imagination. And where secrecy exists, suspicion grows. So the question remains, are world-changing inventions being protected for national security? Or are we simply seeing the natural friction between bold claims and scientific proof? Is the Invention Secrecy Act protecting national security? Or protecting power structures? Secrecy itself creates a vacuum, and vacuums attract speculation. When people see energy prices rising, when corporations hold power, when inventors die unexpectedly, the mind connects dots, whether justified or not. Until classified files are fully declassified, we may never know.
Whoa. Scary stuff. I guess it's better to just remain silent. Sounds like if you invent or try to market free energy, you will be offed.
Agreed. Stan Meyer's water-powered engine wasn't the only invention Stan had in his garage. He also had a donut-shape, electromagnetic device that had a national security order on it. Stan apparently faked the voltage and frequency numbers to prevent another of his inventions from being stolen or classified. The donut-shaped device he invented, that was classified, was said to run on nothing, no gas, no electric, an invention that was probably more important than his water-powered engine.
But if you read this statement, you can kind of tell that the coroner was already questioning whether he was actually poisoned or not, and just dismissed being poisoned as such a blatant lie and not true. I think a brain aneurysm is a very convenient way for somebody to die, and if they were poisoned, that can cause that.
Even in my prior development of high technology, I've had patents taken from me. I learned from the School of Hard Knocks to be very cautious.
Well, friends, that's all for now. If you enjoyed this episode or learned anything new, then why not hit the like button, comment, subscribe, and check out my other videos. We really appreciate it. Thank you again for watching. Take care and be kind. See you next time on Project Wake.